Today's episode is brought to you by Forvis Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Did you know that in Australia, the average wait time for a telco customer service operator is 1.2 hours? Well, there is one telco you may not have heard of, which has an average wait time of just 26 seconds. Surely that cannot be, but it can. It's the Macquarie Technology Group, an Australian provider that's caught the attention of New York Times bestselling author and keynote speaker Dr. Joseph A. Michelli. Joseph's written several bestsellers on iconic brands like Starbucks, the Ritz-Carlton and Mercedes-Benz. This time he unpacks the secrets to Macquarie's outstanding customer service in his new book, Customer Magic: The Macquarie Way. So why do so many large companies fall well short when it comes to customer service? Joseph explains to Chris Ashmore.
Namely because they can get away with it. There are a lot of companies that have developed relationships with customers, and particularly in the business-to-business space, and customers tolerate it until they get a better offer. And, certainly if you get involved as a business customer, you'll often have a lot of products with them, and it's hard to get to another one without a lot of pain and agony.
Well, I probably should have said almost all, because you've identified one that does provide good customer service, and that is Macquarie Technology Group. What is Macquarie? What's their story?
They are a B2B. Their story is they were created in 1992, two brothers, Aidan and David Tudahope. They decided to take on Telstra and the behemoth telecom and a couple of other entrants in the market when deregulation was happening. By 1999, they were a publicly traded company, and their story is they won in the B2B space in telecom technology by focusing on customer experience.
And what makes them such a great customer-centric business?
Well, they were founded on a principle that they were going to make a difference for markets that were overcharged and underserved. So they've always been about that. They hire people who have that talent. They train well, and they use voice of customer metrics very effectively to activate change.
A lot of companies give lip service to being focused on customers, but they don't actually do it. But Macquarie does actually do it.
They absolutely do. And it's reflected in something called the Net Promoter Score, which is a benchmark question. It's the ultimate question, according to Fred Reichheld, which is how likely are you to recommend this business to, family, friends, colleagues. And ultimately, they're in world-class numbers. They're in the 80th plus percentile, which is remarkable. And in the telecom industry, that's known for being in the 30s these days and maybe in the 10s in the old days. So clearly, there's a benchmark objective metric, and there are many stories and a culture that supports it.
Well, do you have any examples where they've gone above and beyond?
A very simple example is they have data centers throughout the region, and literally some people just have a rack in that data center, meaning they just have their equipment being housed in this building. And in one case where the customer had their rack in that building but had someone else servicing that rack, the third party that was servicing it disabled the service. And rather than Macquarie saying, hey, look, it was the person you hired to take it down, they went to heroic means to make sure that client was back up and running in ways that most companies would never care to do. It would just not be their job. But they realized the impact on the customer and the customer's customer.
That's terrific. You have another example with the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons. Somebody from Macquarie flew over to New Zealand to help rectify a situation.
Absolutely. So, there's, again, if you're the end customer and your service goes down and there's a piece of equipment that could be shipped to you multiple days later, or if a Macquarie person can hop a flight immediately and get it to you in 4 hours, the Macquarie commitment is that which is more likely to get it to you as fast as possible, even at some inconvenience on the weekend for some of their teams. And I just think that's the mindset is let's get this right for the customer as quickly as possible.
And so the leadership provides their staff some form of agency and permission to do these things. They don't seem to need to have to ask to get these jobs done. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a model that they have which is called freedom within boundaries. And the reality is if you over control your people and you script the customer service and tell them you can only do these things, you really take away any of their inspiration to do great things in their life, have a real impact on other people. So Macquarie's done a very good job of saying, hey, you've got a lot of latitude, but you still have to live within some boundaries. We have to deliver those kind of NPS scores, those net promoter scores. We have to make sure our EBITDA is growing, and we need to be concerned about revenue. You focus on those three things and only those three things, you've got a free run to make a lot of magic happen.
Indeed. You list in the book Macquarie's values. What are they?
Yeah, there's 4 of them. They keep it simple so anybody can remember them, even an American who isn't part of the culture, right? And they are to make a difference. They are to collaborate with one another to ensure that difference happens. They are what they call PAS, a personal accountable service. Take responsibility, own it, even in collaboration, own it to its resolution, and then finally produce results. Customers don't come to you just so you'll be nice to them. That's not what customer service means. They come to you for a solution, and they appreciate it when you're very compassionate, thoughtful, and go the extra mile for them.
Now, exceptional service means that they have people who are themselves exceptional. What's it like to work at Macquarie?
Well, first off, I think it requires a certain kind of person. And in the old days, they would just look for the top 10% of engineers in universities. Now they're really looking for people who have that customer service gene, who understand what great service looks like, who understands their job is not just to be really super good at technical resolution, but really have a ability to engage human beings in conversation. So I think what it requires is a willingness to engage both on the human level and the technology level. And it means you're going to have contracts that last 2 years. You're going to get certifications. They're going to pay for your training. They're going to give you a developmental model and give you the freedom every 2 years to decide whether you want to re-up and advance within the organization.
It's easy for anyone in any business really to hand pass work onto someone else, or maybe not do things that they perhaps should because it won't be recognised. But Macquarie, at least, it really does recognise the good work that their employees do.
Oh, they're tracking, it's visible. You cannot hide from your own outcome. The NPS scores of each individual is stack ranked. There are monitors everywhere within the building. Individuals who perform exceedingly well at the top of those levels are recognized, rewarded, celebrated throughout the organization. And stories are told. We're all storytellers, and they do a great job of sharing the stories of service excellence and creating that lore, that culture, that not mythology, but a body of work that is almost at legend status for those who create great customer experiences.
How is customer service recorded and measured?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because I think what they're recording is something greater than satisfaction. If I say, how satisfied are you? You use the logical part of your brain and weigh out satisfaction versus dissatisfaction and make a decision. That doesn't predict any loyalty. What they're really trying to get at is how strong is the relationship, and that is measured through likelihood to recommend. I should note that likelihood to recommend doesn't mean a customer will recommend, but it does have a high predictive value of whether they're going to spend more with you and whether they're going to repeat their business with you and resist the urge to be pulled away by a competitor.
That was Dr. Joseph A. Michelli, author of Customer Magic, The Macquarie Way. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Forvis Mazars. To find out more, visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/au.